Welcome into Sikkim365.com. The Bears fall camp practices are officially underway. Colt and I were out there today, along with Jack McKenzie as well, and we had a great time. But let's dive right into it. The first storyline of fall camp, Samu Taumanu Pepe, the impact transfer from Texas A&M at the nose tackle position, was a full participant. The first time he has practiced in full since the first day of spring camp. He also checked in at 376 pounds on the official roster. How big is that, Colt?
Yeah, massive. I mean, from literally and figuratively, but him being out there, obviously we saw him on a bike there for a minute in between drills. Nothing to be concerned about, was going through full participant, but I mean, you talk about the best defense that Dave Aranda's had. He had a nose tackle that looked like that, massive run, and that's kind of leads into our next storyline, but they have two guys that are in that same mold, and I mean, it's exciting to see because you're facing a lot of offenses that want to run the ball this year, starting off with Auburn. Obviously, Arizona State wants to do it, but you have two guys that can clog the middle of the field up, and you just hope they can stay healthy, but he's a big piece of that.
Right, Adonis Freelu out of Tulane is the second one, standing in at a small 6'2", 346 pounds. 346.
Yeah.
So combined, they weigh 722 pounds. Absolutely ridiculous. That's just building depth there. The next big storyline, I would say, let's move over to just kind of quarterback to wide receiver combo that we got to watch. Baylor's brought in a ton of transfers at the wide receiver position, and it showed today, and I think it's going to make it really easy for Dallas Baker and for the staff to kind of replace these guys, move them in, not have guys take too many snaps, which I do think has been a problem over the last few years. Guys just playing too many snaps.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, last year you look at that and they're transitioning from the Jeff Grimes offense with all those tight ends, trying to find their receivers, find the pace with their receivers, and even leaned into Michael Trigg in the tight end position so much for pass catching. This year, it doesn't look like numbers are going to be a problem, and that's massive for a Jake Spavital offense that wants to run guys, rotate guys. Really, you know, you're going to have your Josh Cameron that's going to take a lot of targets, but for the majority of the time, they're going to be rotating guys in and out. They want a lot of guys to get touches, and they have the numbers now, and maybe that allows them to run more tempo, but obviously throw the ball around when they're not running.
So one of the names that was a part of that was Ashtyn Hawkins practicing today. We still haven't gotten word on whether he is eligible or not. Maybe we'll get news on that relatively soon. We'll see. But he was a full participant out there. Some of the guys that stood out, Michael Johnson Jr., the JUCO addition, he was very interesting. Lewis Brown, who transferred from Colorado State, gives them a veteran presence at outside receiver. But one thing that did stand out at the wide receiver position was Taz Williams also being a first participant, a full participant for the first time in his time at Baylor. He wore a yellow jersey all through spring football. Now he looks really good and much more explosive than he did in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, when you have four quarterbacks out there that are going through drills, throwing to new receivers every single rep, that kind of speaks to the numbers. Those freshmen are a big part of that. Taz Williams is a big part of that, and they have a group of guys that came in this year, another group that will come in next year that are going to bolster that depth, and they lose a lot of seniors this year. And that's a good part of this team is they have a lot of older guys, but then you think about next year, it's like, how do they replace them? Well, they have guys that are coming up behind them, and they're trying to replenish that. You bring in the transfer from Purdue that kind of gets that middle of the road, you know, sophomore, junior years, classifications filled. And they're building that depth. I like the older group. I like the younger group. They got to solidify that middle group now.
Yeah, bringing in Ryan Shackelford out of Purdue, and then Michael Johnson Jr. gives them two more guys with 3 years of eligibility. Michael Johnson also does have a red shirt, which, seeing all the guys they have out there, that might be worth using. We'll see how that kind of plays out. In other news, we did look at the running backs today. That's a group I'm very fascinated by just because of how much weight all of these guys put on during the offseason. I mean, Dawson Pendergrass sitting there at 234 pounds is pretty ridiculous. Bryson Washington is up 13 pounds to 216 pounds. Cade Knighton up 6 pounds. And then Michael Turner, the four-star freshman who enrolled in the summer, he is up from a listed 200 pounds to 220 pounds now on the Baylor roster. It's a very encouraging group and one that has a ton of talent, and it's led by Keenan Hall, who is probably the best recruiter on the staff.
Yeah, and that's a group that's, you know, you look back through the previous Baylor years with Art Briles and their running backs and being able to run physical, you start adding weight to these guys that are already athletic, and you're getting them in space. They become hard to tackle. We saw it with Bryson Washington last year. We saw it with Dawson Pendergrass last year. You get them in space, and they're that big and that agile. You hope they keep that speed, but if they're able to break arm tackles at that second level, I mean, it's off to the races. And I think that adding the strength and adding the weight is a massive thing for those guys. And now they have 5, I would say, running backs that are coming. Look, you talk about Joseph Dawes. We didn't even mention him coming off of an injury from last year, but they're deep there right now. And that's pretty exciting about that. For that,
it absolutely is. Yeah, moving over the defensive side really quick. I noticed the edge position. I was kind of went over there and watched them a little bit. Obviously, Amarian Winston, Matthew Fobbs-White, 2 transfers that we all saw during the spring. They look really good. They're going to be impact guys. We've mentioned them a ton. They're potential breakout candidates, I would say, for this Baylor team. But there was another transfer who was out in the summer out of UTEP, Jalen Jones, who was a former guy that Baylor recruited heavily. He played a little bit at UTEP, did not burn his red shirt, so now he's a true sophomore. He's listed at 228 pounds, but just to give people an idea of what you see on Twitter, he did have a before and after, and it said he was 245 pounds at 6'6". Something to keep an eye on, because when I saw him, he did not look like 228 pounds. I can say that for sure. And he might be a contributor with those other guys, along with Kamarian Morgan, the other 4-star prospect who put on 21 pounds over the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's a group that Baylor needs to highlight in this Dave Aranda defense, and they brought in guys to do that. Jalen Jones is one of those, but he's a young guy too. I mean, you have some seniors on that group, or 2 juniors actually now with Fobbs and Amarian, but they're going to bring that group along. This started last year. I thought was the first year that they really had good production from that position group. Now they're going to build on that. You hope that the guys they brought in from Oregon, Tulane, and obviously with Jalen Jones, but it's an exciting group, I think an athletic group, and they're only going to get bigger and stronger over the next couple of years, but they need that group to be really good this year. I think that's kind of the key to the defense along with safety, but if that group can be good from a pass rushing position specifically, it could take this defense to another level.
It would definitely help. As far as just kind of other news and notes, we didn't get to see a ton from the secondary. The familiar faces were out there practicing. I don't think we got any true read on who's going to play star officially, even though we do think Carl Williams, DJ Coleman are probably going to anchor that position. We think Tyler Turner, Devin Bobby are going to be the starters at safety, but nothing to read really there. The cornerbacks as well, just kind of working in. I think we've heard the familiar names, but I know you wanted to mention one because we mentioned him all spring, but seeing Calvin Simpson-Hunt in person, it's very different. Even though he's not a guy that's been mentioned a lot throughout the spring and even at Big 12 Media Days, he kind of seems like he's maybe the 4th cornerback, but he looks physically imposing.
Yeah, he does. And that entire group, I mean, you start with Caden Jenkins, who's looking to bounce back from a sophomore slump, as I would call it. But that group has a lot of potential. Calvin being one of those guys that comes in from Ohio State, obviously, highly decorated as a recruit, kind of a forgotten transfer because he didn't do anything at Ohio State to speak of. Comes to Baylor, plenty of talent. And but physically looks different than the other guys. He almost looks like a safety out there. And not that he's going to move to safety by any means, but he has that build, big, strong, and physical. So I'm excited to see that group, and obviously we have a lot more in this coverage over fall camp. But I think that's a group that has a lot of potential. Now if they can play to, it's the key.
And the last thing that I wanted to hit on, because I think it's actually important, but it wasn't a huge storyline during the spring, even though it probably should have been. Kelsey Johnson, the tight end.
Huge.
He was a full participant today. He did not practice at all in the spring. Was not really seen a whole lot, just kind of going through rehab. Now he's a full participant, and I'm telling you, this matters. Baylor needed another tight end to step up behind Michael Trigg, along with Matthew Klopfenstein, just to work in and to give them a veteran presence like this to potentially take over the Gavin Yates role and maybe be more of a playmaker. I think it's really important for this offense, and it could take them to another level.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey's different than Michael Trigg, obviously built differently, but as you mentioned, Gavin Yates was a guy that they're going to lose this year that was very productive in his role, kind of a forgotten man and just physical in the run game, kind of does a lot of the dirty work. Kelsey can do that, and then he adds a little bit more in the passing game than Gavin did. And so that's exciting to see. I mean, he was a guy in 2023, 2022 that made plays for them on the offensive side of the ball. Didn't get that chance to redshirt. I assume he'll get that redshirt year back from this past year missing time. But he's a component that we haven't really talked about that adds a different element to this offense if he can stay healthy.
And there were worries that he might not be at Baylor. I mean, just being honest, because he hadn't played a ton. I'm really excited to see him out there. I think it's pretty important for this team. Outside of that, that's day one. I mean, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff throughout fall camp. Hopefully we'll be able to do more videos like this as fall camp rolls on. But be sure to check out Sikkim 365 Premium. We will have all kinds of insider notes on what we saw at practice, actually being here, actually getting to watch some football. Be sure to check that out. You aren't going to want to miss it. But thanks for listening. This has been Sikkim365.com.